Hi guys. So sometimes I need to do some soldering in the field and there may not be any power outlets available, and I came across this thing over here, and of course I do have some small soldering irons that are actually battery powered, but they just do not have the power. They're usually less than 20 watts and they just can't handle even soldering together a couple of automotive wires or something like that. So this thing here actually has a battery that is hefty. It is actually a battery, I believe it says in the description that it is compatible with a Makita battery or something. And it is 60 watts. So we're going to put this thing to its paces and have a look how it goes. The people that are selling that company is called SeeSii, and they've actually sent me one for evaluation. So I'm going to review it here, and we're going to see what we can do with it. If you like these kind of videos, please subscribe and like and push the little bell thing so that you can keep notified when I post these kind of things. In any case, let's have a look what we can do with it. Oh, and also in the description there will be a link there where you can actually buy one of these with a discount and other information. So have a look at that as well. At this thing then. They just delivered it, and it's in this little box here. SeeSii cordless soldering iron station kit, 60 watts power, cordless, fast heating, and helping hands. So let's have a look what we have. Okay, so this is the battery then, and rechargeable lithium-ion battery, 21 volts, 200 milliamp hours, 36 watt hours, and seems to have a button on there, and 3 of the symbols light up, so obviously it's not fully charged, but you can expect it straight out of the box. So let's have a look. There's a little socket here for a charger. So there we go, here's a charger. Undo. I'll plug it in and see what happens. Well, there's a light on the actual charger itself. I don't see any indication on this thing that it is charging, but I guess the light on the little charger possibly will go green or something like that. We'll keep an eye on that and let you know. And then we have the actual device. And it comes with 2 little so-called helping hands, and there are 5 spare soldering tips, which is a good thing, because normally you have to buy those separately. And that's all that's in the box. Alright, so this is the little manual that came with it, and from here that not too easy to see on the screen maybe, but 60 watts power, voltage 18 to 21 volts, that's what the battery voltage is. Heat up time about a minute. I think it's a little quicker than that I've seen, but it's not bad. 30 to 40 minutes working time, 2.5 hours charging, operating temperature 500 degrees C, maximum 100 minimum. You can press this button and adjust the temperature of the iron. Temperature control range between 100 to 500 degrees C. Fahrenheit or Celsius can be switched by pressing the power button and the minus button at the same time. So that's what we need to do, because I want Celsius, I don't want Fahrenheit. And I think there's not that much else to say. What's in the box? Soldering iron, 2 removable helping hands, these guys, the little hands, removable, yes, 5 times soldering iron tips, little mini wrench. That's this guy here. Here's the soldering iron tips that came with it, and the charging cable and the battery and the manual. It's just some instructions how to put those little so-called helping hands in there, and if you don't use it for 10 minutes it goes to shutdown mode, or standby mode rather, and so far pretty self-explanatory stuff. These things go in here. On the pictures they always show this thing to be in that direction, but if I was using this thing, I think I would like to have it with the soldering iron facing me, but maybe that is not the best way to use it. There one of those little screen protectors on there. Yes, there is. Totally obvious, but okay. Okay, so I have put the battery on charge to make sure it's fully charged, and indeed on the little charging device there is an LED here, and it went green when it was fully charged, and now it is showing 4 bars on there, so that should be a good time to put the battery in like that, click, and now let's have a look, put this thing to use and see what we can do with it. Alright, so I have a separate little holder over here which I will use for the time being, so you can see the display. So we should be able to turn it on, and I have actually set it previously to 330 degrees Celsius, and as you can see it is warming up. To 60, to 70, to 80. Okay, 330. So yeah, that took less than a minute, I think. Any case, I've also thought myself, I was initially thinking, what use these little so-called helping hands are, and then I realized that more often than not, I actually need to solder wires together, and that would be a handy little fixture for that. I seem to be doing this more often than I would like to think, where you can just kind of poke the wires together like this, and then you could actually use the soldering iron to actually, let's see, it's a little sponge here, solder it together. think we can do a little bit more power there. There we go. I think that's a good use for these little guys. We have a wire that's soldered together. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to check the. We'll put this back in here now. We're going to check the temperature. Set for 350. Looks like it is a little bit lower than what it reads, 340. 342 and it says 350. That's not too bad, but let's have a look what happens when we set it to 400. Put a little bit of fresh solder on there. These types of soldering irons always take a little while to get to maximum temperature. They're not as quick as the T12 ones, or looks like it's going to be 384, 85, 87, 387 when it says 400, so it's reading a little bit higher than what the actual temperature is, so you have to keep that in mind. That's why I normally would set my soldering iron to 330 and it would have been hot enough, but I had to raise it to about 350, and that makes sense because when it was 350 it was actually like 340 or something like that. Okay, well, that is what it is, and this is not unusual with these kind of soldering irons with those kind of heating elements. They are not necessarily totally accurate, but it's once you know that the offset, then it's good enough. In fact, more expensive soldering irons usually have an offset, like a menu that you can actually add the offset to. You can measure it with one of those devices so you know exactly what you're using. So let's have a look. I'm going to turn it off like that, and I'm going to put a small tip in there, and we're going to try to do some micro soldering on this little PCB over here. Let me find the little board that we got to work with, and I'm going to put this aside, and this is the little board, and I'm going to have to get the microscope going here, so you won't be able to see the soldering station, but that doesn't matter. So give me a minute here. Okay, good. So we're under the microscope now, and as you can see, this little PCB here had a problem. I goofed up and I used the wrong footprint for a little transistor that actually goes over here, and the two pins have to be swapped. So what was this pin has to go over there, and what was over there had to go over here. So in order to achieve that, I drilled some tiny little holes and put a little bit of wire wrap wire, very fine wire in there. And we're going to be soldering that up, and we might actually put this opto isolator on here and see how we go with micro soldering on there. Of course, normally I would use a very fine soldering iron, but these tips, this tip over here is not, where are we? This tip is not too bad, although there is a finer one. I think I might swap it over for the finer one. Let me have a look here. This is the, yeah, this is a finer one that came with it. I think that would be a better one to use. So let me put that one in then. Now, the finer the tip is on these guys, the harder it is to solder with them, because there's much less metal to carry the heat. So it'll be an interesting test for it to see how that would go. Alright, so I'm going to mount it in my PCB holder now. Okay, so I've got this thing mounted in my little PCB holder here, and it's right underneath the microscope, which you can just see a little bit of the ring light of. And of course this is the microscope, and you can see how much magnification we're using. And we are going to try to use this little tip over here. That's the smallest tip that came with it. So let's have a look how that goes. I'm going to turn it on. Okay, and I think I will reduce the temperature. Okay, got it set for 340, but we know that that's really like 330 something. And let me see now with my tweezers here. I want this one go like so. That one here is good. This one here, I want it to be nearer the outside edge, because there's a resistor that's going to be on there as well. And I think this one here is good as it is. Alright, now for that we're going to be using some thinner solder. This is actually 0.3 millimeter. Okay, so I decided to resolder this little wire over here, because when I did the other ones over here, unfortunately the camera was off and I didn't record it. So this is kind of how it went. Let me get my solder here. There we go. So it works very well actually for this micro soldering, and has a tip that is fine enough to work with it. Under the microscope it looks large, but trust me, it is very small. Okay, and because I did some micro soldering before, and unfortunately the camera didn't work, I decided we will put on this little tiny transistor over here. So you can have a look how that works. So what we're going to do, there it is there. Make sure I've got it in the tweezer so it doesn't jump away, which those things tend to do if you're not careful. And we definitely will need flux. This flux is not so much like to avoid corrosion or something like that. This kind of flux actually will make stop the solder from ridging. It has I'm going to do one little leg first. Look at the microscope here to make sure that I am lined up. It's kind of hard to nail it down. Put my hand on the board here. Okay, that's one leg. Now we should be able to get the other two little legs done. And I must say that this is working very well. Much better than I expected for this kind of soldering iron. That is it. So normally after we do this, we will flood the thing with a bit of isopropyl alcohol and mop up the flux. A bit of a paper towel here. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah, we'll do it. Okay. Okay, so I have a cent coin here, or a penny as the Americans like to call it, and it's copper plated on the outside, but I think on the inside it's got some cheaper metal in there, maybe tin or something like that, I have no idea. And I've got a little piece of PCB over here, and we're going to try to solder this coin on top of the PCB here and see how well we can do that with 60 watts. I must admit, some of my soldering irons, I have a 130 watt one which I occasionally use for heavy duty stuff, but so far this thing has been working pretty good. And I put this bit in there, see how that goes. So I'm going to put a little bit of, to help it along, I'll put a little bit of flux on the actual PCB. I'm going to use the fatter side here, and on this coin here I'm going to use some rosin flux because it's kind of corroded. I rubbed it down a little bit, but this kind of flux here will be more effective. So first of all, I've got it set to 360 degrees, what we know from our measurement that that's probably closer to 350, which we're going to try. I'm going to use thicker solder. I don't have really, well, that's not true, I have some really thick solder. This is it over here that I use in the solder pot. But that would be, yeah, it does melt it. Okay, so that's a good sign. Let's put some solder on here. Yeah, no problems at all. And if I put some solder on this coin here, I've used this before for to test other soldering irons. That's why there is a bit of okay, it's having a little bit of a harder time with this coin. Get some tweezers here to hold it down. But yeah, it's doing it. Now if I put this coin over here upside down, see how long it takes to heat the whole thing here. Yep, it's working. See, there's a little bead of solder coming from underneath. So I think that this thing is working a lot better than what I envisaged. It's going to be really handy to have this, because there are times when I have to do some work. Yeah, coin is soldered to the PCB. There are times when I have to do some work where I don't have power, and those little USB soldering irons, they just can't handle heavy duty stuff. You see a lot of those now, they're popular, and some of them probably are good, you know, for micro-soldering, but then this thing did well for the micro-soldering as well. So I just want to mention that if you're into 3D printing, you can get these little bits over here, and you can put those on your soldering iron and get it to come out like that, and then screw it down like so. And since this thing can be set go right down to 100 degrees Celsius, most 3D printed like PLA and so on, they will go like melt at like 200 degrees. So it goes down plenty low enough that you can just melt it, and you can put those little threaded inserts on there, and you can just melt them, you know, like right into the plastic sort of thing. I don't have an example here, but so that's another thing that you can use these kinds of soldering irons for, and this thing would be absolutely ideal for that. That back, and I think if I'm going to use this thing, then this little chisel bit here would be the one that I would use most often, so I'll put that on there and put it with my collection there of equipment that I use when I need to. So there you have it. I think it is actually quite a nice little soldering station. I am surprised. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as what it is. And it worked well for the micro soldering that I did on this little board here, and surface mount components, and it did well doing heavy duty stuff. So I think all in all, it is a nice little soldering station, and well worth the money. And if you are just starting out with electronics, you could probably do worse than to buy this thing and to just to get started with. But for me, it is handy because it's portable, you know, battery powered, so I don't have to plug it into the wall socket, or don't have to plug it into a USB power supply, which wouldn't have enough power anyway. So yeah, I think it's a good buy. Well recommended.